Yeah.
So he's been around a long time. Of course, he doesn't play.
What, like 26?
And 9:30. I'm scared to tell you. I shouldn't have to be there. The DC government.
It takes too much work.
I should be and Charles is government. And the court should not be hearing me because I'm playing that they should occur to the agency's decision.
The mayor is going to call.
It can be
49 and 55, 55. She's not as bad as the counselor.
9:30. 9:30. And the court's go here.
Yes, we do.
Greetings to Sherwood.
How you doing?
All right, how about you?
I got to do mine. Who knows? I haven't done mine for you're sitting next to the future. So you're kind of fast as the
Third time in a week. Doesn't give you the time to
Well, I was searching the Navy to avoid being drafted in the Army, but I don't like that. Okay. So I'm a veteran of avoiding the draft.
Well, that's how you get it. That's how you get
2 years on active duty in the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only thing you want to go to draft, but having to tell you where you're going.
Oh, I know.
Much easier to serve in the Navy than the Navy Yard.
I went to the Air Force. I joined the Air Force. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't.
Wonder what happened February. I went through last June's CFO letter certifying the budget of what was new, what was different, all the so like 2 pages how much more this 25 budget was over the 24 budget. Lays out exactly what the money was spent. Million.
How are you?
Added up all the
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself
one thing I do know is
I have been a source in
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
to imitate the
Doge. Yeah.
don't cover it.
It's
like old.
I studied I love that.
He was in one sauce like I'm actually started saying I know it takes me about 8 weeks. After they started, you know, we're gonna wait. Is that a green tie? Yeah. You were the only two who were the mayor. Oh, the mayor? I'm got four. The mayor and I'm the mayor. No, I don't. You are so much. Okay, thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
All we do is give them the mouse. Trying to feel like you know what you're doing. Watching this.
Yeah, I have a
if they do see you come there might be.
I knew they were there.
Our calendar. Well, he probably just wanted probably privately. And then the guy from Oklahoma, what was the appropriations chair? That Tom, old people. So he's got the coaching, your golf and all that. You can stop.
I'm all on Tom.
I don't know. I get every day off.
Dan, any suggestion of will be this century?
No, no me suena.
I know that they're having.
Send me your email or just remind me.
'Cause Tom Sherwood DC always. Tom Sherwood DC. Go ask him. Where did you go? He's dragging those old legs.
How are you? I know, and I was actually going to tell you.
I couldn't you were.
No, I am not. Southeast. Not sure. Yes.
My favorite word was. I didn't see it. Oh, yeah, it's kind of an odd shape. Are you guys, are you on alphabetical order?
It has to be. I mean, That's like we have. Yeah, but they want to hear. They want. I don't know.
My chair there. Yeah. She here yet?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and we are located in the John A. Wilson building, our city hall. I am joined today by the chairman of the council, Phil Mendelson, the chief financial officer for the district, Glenn Lee, members of the council of the District of Columbia, the city administrator for the District of Columbia, Kevin Donahue, and my budget director, Jenny Reed. We are here today to provide a brief briefing on the continuing resolution and its impacts on the district. On Friday, the Congress passed, and over the weekend, the president signed a 6-month continuing resolution to fund the federal government through September. Notably, the resolution lacked the customary language that allows the district to continue operating under our current budget, the fiscal 25 budget, the Congress had previously approved last summer. As discussed last week, the omission could potentially result in a $1 billion reduction in our approved spending, which would negatively impact the district in a number of ways. And because these are our local funds, it would not result in $1 of federal savings. In response, on Friday, the Senate passed a bipartisan bill, S1077, the DC Local Funds Act, which would rectify this oversight and safeguard the district from unnecessary budget cuts in the middle of our fiscal year. I want to thank Senate Appropriations Chair Susan Collins of Maine, as well as Vice Chair Patty Murray, Senator Angela Alsobrooks, Senator Tim Kaine, Chris Van Hollen, and Senator Mark Warner for their leadership in advancing this measure. Now we are actively working with our congressional allies to ensure the House of Representatives expedites the approval of this critical bipartisan measure just as soon as possible. So despite these challenges, I want to be clear about this. We will meet our financial obligations, and we will maintain the high standard of services that our residents, businesses, and visitors expect. We're going to stay focused. Excuse me.
Did you tell President Trump that Quran is illegal? Do you know the pardon of those officers is very much like as basic as I said? Do you know the pardons of these officers is very much unconstitutional? Do you understand that?
Ms. Hilton, I'm happy to talk to you following this briefing.
Don't touch me.
Ms. Hilton, if you would step outside, I'm happy to.
I tried to ask you, and I'm asking you again. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Did you tell President Trump that Quran is illegal?
No.
Do not touch me. You
No.
didn't tell him that.
No.
Okay. So when he said that, did you tell him?
Ms. Hilton, I can't. Ms. Hilton, Ms. Hilton, Ms. Hilton.
Put your hands on me. You did not tell him that. Did you let him know that the pardon of those officers are unconstitutional? Do not touch me.
Ms. Hilton, Ms. Hilton.
I asked you before. Did you tell him?
No, Ms. Hilton, I haven't talked to the president about your son. Okay. Let me just repeat. I already talked to you about the district's commitment to maintaining our public safety and services and staying focused on our students, schools, and neighborhoods. Our biggest focus at this time is our economy. That said, we have also initiated contingency planning to address potential fiscal shortfalls. The district has a long-standing history of resilience and prudent financial management. That's why we came into 2025 with a AAA bond rating, 29 consecutive balanced budgets, and strong reserves. And on April 2nd, we're still on track to deliver our 30th balanced budget to the council. So while I am confident that we will navigate these priorities and navigate these uncertainties, I want to extend my hearty congratulations to everyone, including our council members, our residents, businesses, especially our school children who advocated for DC last week. Our home rule is limited, but our voices have been heard. So I want to thank you again for being here. I want to turn to the chairman for any comments, and then we can take a few questions.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser, and good afternoon to everyone here. I'm going to avoid introducing each of my colleagues by name because I didn't write it down and I'll forget somebody, but we are joined by 10 of the council members. See, I have to remember, 10 of the council members. And the reason why we are all here, standing with the mayor, is to once again make the point that the government of the District of Columbia is united in addressing this concern with Congress. We are thankful that the Senate at least passed that second bill that Senator Collins moved, and with support from the jurisdiction's representatives. We're very thankful to them. But of course, now we have to make sure that the House passes that as well. Just a couple of points I want to emphasize. For those who might be watching this, who don't realize these are local dollars, these are not federal dollars, that the cuts that the continuing resolution would have doesn't benefit the federal government in any way, that it is a result of changing the rules in the middle of the fiscal year since our budget, our spending at the FY25 levels was authorized twice before in continuing resolutions. So the cuts, if we were to have to make them, would be very, very difficult to make, if not devastating. But that our operations are able to continue while we work with the House to ensure passage of this second bill. And I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, we can take a few. Yes.
Two questions for the time being. First question, what assurances have you gotten from the White House or from Speaker Johnson that the House will look at this next week and that the amendment will go through the House?
Well, as the chairman said, we're continuing to work with the House to determine what their next steps are.
But as far as assurances, if you could just, like, is there a percentage, like as far as the likelihood, at this point, what can you tell us?
Well, I think the case has been made that these are DC local dollars, that cutting them in the middle of the year would be devastating to our operations and to our shared goals of making our city the best, most beautiful city and one that serves our residents. So we're very confident, and we're going to keep working with the Congress until its final passage.
Speaking of local dollars, last question for the time being. What is the contingency plan if the House rejects this? So are we looking at fewer school days during the week? What's the contingency plan just in case?
We haven't gotten to that stage. Yes.
What is happening in the interim in this week where we could be waiting on the vote? Do you guys have to make those immediate cuts?
So I'm going to turn to our CFO in just a moment, but let me be clear about this. We're midway through, and even with reverting to a 24 budget, there's no department in the government that is exceeding that. So we are proceeding just as we did last week. But let me turn to CFO Lee.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Yes, to answer your question, we're halfway through the fiscal year. So no department is overspent even the 24 level or is close to spending the 24 level simply because of where we are in the fiscal year. So that gives the mayor and the council time to make these really difficult decisions of how to react to a scenario where the CR becomes law.
So at this point, nobody's furloughed, laid off, there's no cuts immediately happening this week.
That is correct.
Mr. Lee, could we just follow up?
Well, beyond that, did you hear what he said? He said that we're mid-year and no department is anywhere close to expending over its 24 budget. So I don't think we're just talking about this week. Yes.
Mayor, can we ask?
Sure. What's your question, Tom?
Mr. CFO, I think the timing question is the measure has passed. It's legal. It's passed Congress. I think the president signed it. At what time frame do you have to give the House time to act on this new measure, since the bill's been passed already to meet the 24 level? Is there a deadline?
For me, immediately, there's not a deadline because I know the council and the mayor are working through both scenarios. One where the correction is made by the House agreeing to the Senate's bill, and then second, if that doesn't happen. And so I know from my organization's point of view, we're preparing for both as well. And I have confidence that the mayor and council will come to at least initial decisions that will be substantive to deal with the scenario of the CR just being the law as opposed to the other passing through the House. And so at the moment, I'm confident at the effort that's underway to handle both scenarios.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I could just follow up my question. You listed the people in the Senate who helped last week. Who are you working with in the House on the Republican side to make sure that Speaker Johnson gets the full message?
Well, we always start with Mr. Comer, who is our oversight chair, and we won't leave any stone unturned.
No other names you would like to name?
No.
Has any other Republicans spoken up in public for the District of Columbia?
I can't say I have a full scan of what's been said. Thank you. Okay, so why don't I do 3 in the front, and then I'll do 2 in the front here. Yep.
I'm Sophie from German television debate. How do you feel about President Trump exercising influence on cultural life in the city? He's going to the Kennedy Center today. He's heard his actions. How do you see cooperation in the future? Yeah.
Well, I will say we were surprised by that, and we revere the Kennedy Center and the role of the arts in the District of Columbia. We were, I think, privileged to have David Rubenstein, who so ably chaired the board, and Deborah Rutter, who did an amazing job. And I think the new leadership, they have big shoes to fill. And so I hope that they have a robust plan to bring the arts and celebrate the arts, the diversity of the arts in Washington, D.C. The Kennedy Center is important to us. Cultural tourism is important to us. So we need it to be operating at full steam. Yep.
Yeah, Mayor, we saw unanimous support in the Senate last week, and I know that you were in touch with Senator Collins, but I'm wondering if there was anything else you personally were doing, or members of your staff, with other Republicans in the Senate. What was your message to them? The commitments that you made, or to clear up any misunderstandings that they had? What were those conversations?
I can tell you, like, as I said, we had a full court press in the Senate, and our conversations were similar to what you've seen, our talking points that we shared with the Senate. Our budget is approved. These are local dollars. It doesn't save the federal government any money. We're halfway through our fiscal year, and cutting now would be reckless.
I could ask one more question.
Yep.
Are there any other options that the district is exploring intended to mitigate the impacts of the anticipated cuts if this were to go through? Anything legally or legislatively?
Well, Megan, this is what I can say. The best option is for the House to fix this, and we're going to stay focused on the House fixing it. Yep.
Mayor Ben Peters, Washington Business Journal. The Trump administration said on Friday that they are planning to call off the FBI's relocation from D.C. to Greenbelt. How does that change the district's planning for that city block?
Well, first, we have been supportive of a FBI relocation off of Pennsylvania Avenue, and that's where we've been for a while. We do think that it will create a nexus with the rest of our vision for the downtown. We've also been supportive of it locating at an underutilized metro station like the one that was chosen in Maryland. We've always anticipated that about 1,000 FBI personnel would remain in the district. So we will work with the administration on those personnel. So that's one question. But a larger question is, where are all the employees? We are not talking about the same cadre of FBI personnel that we would have been last year. So I understand that a lot of the personnel are being sent around the country. This side.
Mayor, quick follow-up on the question. I know there's no timeline of when it needs to be addressed, but is there, are we talking days? Are we talking weeks into this would actually we would kick into, the part B of this and actually start seeing layoffs happen?
I can't really add more than what has already been said by the CFO. We're halfway through the fiscal year. There's no department that is coming close to FY24 expenditures at this point. And so we're managing through the political process.
And just to follow up, obviously, this would impact, as you know, city employees. Just your message to them as, we saw a lot of them lobbying on Capitol Hill and kind of expressing themselves.
Thank you for asking that, because there is a lot of anxiety among our staff as well. And we want them to know, and they should know this, that I said today we meet our obligations. And if there is ever any impact to our staffing, we are going to let people know what we're working with, and they will be treated with dignity and compassion. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, I wanted to ask, were you prepared for the possibility that the Senate would have passed the funding resolution without that bill to help DC? And if so, would there have been cuts as of today? And can you give us any specifics on what that plan involved as far as, was it layoffs of police and teachers, 911 center?
Well, that's not where we are. I'm not going to look back and kind of speculate about that. This is where we are. We have a bipartisan, unanimously approved resolution from the Senate led by Susan Collins. And I might also add that Senator Collins coordinated with the House on the House side, Representative Cole, who is on a PROPS in the House side. And so that coordination happened. She spoke very clearly that she had the support of Representative Cole and President Trump in advancing the bill. And so I think both of those things go a long way.
Well,
yes.
Worst case scenario, if this doesn't pass for some some reason in the House, I mean, can you say any specifics about what would happen as far as would people lose their jobs, layoffs?
What I can tell you is that we're going to follow the law, and we'll follow the federal law, and we will be compliant. We will meet our obligations, all of them, and we will work with the members of the council to make the best decisions for Washington, D.C. Yes, Mark, and next, and then to Lou.
Thank you. I'm wondering, you seem to have walked back just a little bit about the amount that this might be impacting, the $1 billion, from your initial letter to Congress, which really sounded the alarm, to today saying potentially $1 billion, and being very adamant about pointing out that you haven't reached your levels yet. So do you now believe, looking at this, having had a chance to look at it more closely, that if it were to go in effect, the number may not be as big as $1 billion? The CFO is shaking his head. No.
No, that's what I believe.
That it would be. It still would definitely, if it goes into effect, it would be, okay, I appreciate that. And then to clarify, have you spoken to Representative Comer? Since Friday, since the Senate passage?
Not to Representative Comer, but his team.
And to anybody on the House Speaker, to Mr. Johnson's team, have you spoken to him or his staff?
Of course, yes, we're speaking with his staff.
And what have they told you? Have they given you an indication whether he'll bring it for a House?
Mark, we're still working it. I don't think they have the bill yet. I'm not sure it's come over from the Senate yet, and so they're on recess. So I wouldn't expect like a lot of action during recess. They're back on Monday, and we're gonna get to work on it. No, next question. Hold up, somebody else. Yep.
Yeah, Matt from the Washington Times. Senator Collins last week mentioned that the budget cuts were a mistake when she was speaking on Capitol Hill. I was wondering if you agree with that assessment, given some of the DC-focused legislation coming out of the House.
I don't know. And I do know, and I trust Senator Collins' judgment.
You don't think it was intentional?
I don't know. Yes. Lou?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I was just wondering, in addition to the possibility, which people seem to think is not likely, that the House will not go along with the Senate on the bill to exempt DC from the big budget cut, the CFO has mentioned a little earlier that a week or two ago, that due to the large number of federal worker layoffs from the Trump administration, that the city's revenue is going to be lower in fiscal 2026 and the next 2 years after that. And with that happening, I was just wondering, is there any thought of what specific programs might have to be cut, particularly those that some people that we report on, the liaison offices like the Office of LGBT Affairs, Latino Affairs, African American Affairs, would those offices have to be cut?
Well, as you know, Lou, we are working on our budget right now. The FY26 proposal that you referenced, the revenue forecast over the next 4 years, our forecasted revenue has gone down by $1 billion. And those are the numbers that we must use when we balance our budget. So we are looking at that right now, and we'll make a proposal to the council in the next several weeks. Anybody? Okay. All right, right here.
Hi, how you doing? Carolina Cruz from Telemundo. It kind of goes in line with my colleague Lou in regards to programs that perhaps could be cut. I know you said there's no contingency plan as of now, correct? Just want to make sure we have that. And a lot of people have talked about cuts on education and public safety, but what about programs that cater to specific communities? In my case, I'm more concerned about the Latino community.
If your question is if we had to make $1 billion cut right now, as Kevin likes to say, we have to go where the money is in our budget to cut that fast. And our top areas of spending are schools, public safety, and the human services.
But as of now, nothing is in the chopping block. Okay.
Anybody have a different question? Okay. Yes.
Hey, Mayor, speaking of the FY26 budget, are you able to give us a preview of what you're thinking about, just, your top areas?
Now, Megan.
Priority?
Yes. Public safety, public schools, and how we grow our economy.
Have you communicated any of this in conversations with Republicans, some of them wondering, why was the district's budget $1 billion more between this year and last year? What is this year's budget going to conversations at all?
That's a conversation between all of us, and using the best information that we have. And your very smart colleague here, Tom Sherwood, sent out why our budget is different. And this is why. We paid Metro, we need public transit. It was a payment to our DC public schools and public charter schools, additional human services, and, that's of great interest. We paid our loans. We paid the Metropolitan Police Department an additional $80 million. And by the way, we had a 35% decrease in violent crime. We paid our police officers and firefighters retirement system that had increased costs, more retirees, more cost. The Department of Healthcare Finance saw a big increase. And when I say we have to go to where the money is, if we have to make dramatic cuts mid-year, that's one such source. The Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, DC Fire, also had additional cost in the teachers' retirement system. So when we think about increased costs from year to year, we're experiencing increased labor costs, inflation, cost of materials, and greater demand for our services. Just in the schools alone, the numbers that I mentioned represent, unlike a lot of jurisdictions, we have more children in our schools, and that's a good thing. And we are very invested in their outcomes. And what outcome data show us is that our children are doing well compared to their peers. So those are some of the additional costs that were driving the difference between the FY24 budget and the FY25 budget. Okay, and I'm just going to take a couple more, guys. Yep.
One of the major warnings you issued in the memo you wrote to Congress about the budget was that it could impact renovations to Capital One Arena. I'm curious if you've been in conversations with Ted Leonsis or Monumental Sports about contingency plans.
We don't. It is true that impact to our capital budget would affect all of our planned CIP spending, but we will meet our commitments to the Capital One Arena.
I apologize, man. Just to follow up this question. The NFL, as you know, is trying to come to the District of Columbia. If this $1 billion problem isn't fixed by the House, you have already budget pressures. Can you afford to bring the NFL team back, whatever the deal is going to be?
Sure. I look forward to talking to you about that in the future. All right, Mark.
Thank you. Back on the budget, did you sign the last budget? Did you have issues with the final budget?
I sometimes have issues with budgets.
I mean, is that part of what got us to $1 billion over the previous year?
I'm sorry. It was what got us to what? What?
Whatever issues you have with budgets.
No.
Okay. Can I ask you about immigration enforcement in the district? The Washington Post had reported recently, at least one case where a couple was picked up detained for several days in the District of Columbia. Can you tell us the district's role, if any? Are you notified? Do you have a count? Do you know how many people have had such experiences?
No, and I'm not sure that we would. The district has no role in immigration enforcement.
Does your Office of Migrant Services play any role?
No, the district has no role in immigration enforcement.
And I've asked before, can we speak ever to the head of the Office of Migrant Services for an interview to see what that office is doing? Is that office funded in the next budget?
Mark, we haven't talked about anything that's funded in our next budget.
How about interviewing the head of that agency who, to my knowledge, has never, ever spoken to the press?
Well, so that you know, that office is in the Department of Human Services, and the Department of Human Services will take any questions that you have about those services. Okay, last question.
Under what circumstances would we have to tap into the reserve funds? So if the House, by some chance, doesn't approve the amendment, what are we looking at as far as that?
Well, there are a lot of legal requirements for our use of we have a bunch of reserve funds, and the CFO can talk to you about that when we conclude. But there are a lot, we would follow the statutes, mostly local, and some federal statutes that govern how we use our reserves.
And if it comes down to it, under what circumstance would you forego pursuing the stadium?
That's a decision that certainly I'll use my best judgment to make. Thank you. Nope, that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody.
Are you still on track to do the announcement of a re-election? No. No. No.